Hello everyone, my name is Eostrix. Let's get into the jank. I'm not very good at gauging power levels, so these of course will not have a standard power level rating. Instead they will have a rating of trash, jank, works, or god tier, depending on their performance within my friend group. But if you have an idea of how you think these decks would play, drop a comment below. All of my decks are budgeted cards usually around 25 to 50 cents, with scattered cards of $1 to $5, and occasionally cards that are above $5 I pulled from packs, events, or just bought when they were cheap and they rocketed in price. Today, I'm introducing my commander deck of Land Discarding Saskia. Land Discarding Saskia was a deck inspired by the channel EDH Deckbuilding, which will be linked in the description. It's as the name intends, a deck built around land discarding using the commander Saskia. Saskia the Unyielding is a 3/4 legendary human soldier for Dune Brood, white, green, black, red. It has vigilance and haste. It also has 2 abilities that state when she enters the battlefield, choose a player. Whenever a creature you control deals combat damage to a player, it also deals that much damage to chosen player. Similarly to my Prosper Stormbound deck, the name says it all. This deck is about discarding lands and using those effects to knock out your opponents. Primarily, it focuses on 2 enchantments, Ayula's Influence and Seismic Assault. Seen as they're more important than our commander, Seismic Assault has the ability of discarding a land to deal 2 damage to target player, while Ayula's Influence makes bears from discarded lands, both of which cost 3 of their respective mana. So, we're trying to recur our lands repeatedly for big stacks of damage and or bigger board state than our opponents. Let me show you how it works. To begin, we have Creeping Renaissance. Recur any kind of permanent to your hand, more specifically all of your lands that you just discarded. Face Reward, which recurs back to the battlefield all the lands you just sacrificed for even more dumb effects, usually with Fall of Thrawn. Fortune is Fine returns both an artifact and creature. Grim Discovery returns a useful land and a creature. Reap the Past, when returning random X cards, hopefully X is equal to the number in your graveyard, but any cards is better than none. Reconstruct History returns 1 card of 4 different types to your hand, so you can do even more stupid stuff, but it exiles itself. Resurgent Belief returns all enchantment cards from your graveyard to the battlefield, which is a big part of this deck, as they are the main ways you're able to interact. Fellow's Gift, trade green card information for important enchantments. They were going to go onto the stack anyways afterwards. Splendid Reclamation, self-explanatory, but yeah, lands. The Mandate of Dominaria returns creatures for milling 2, and then returns all lands to the battlefield to then sacrifice them. Archfiend of Ifnir, for all those lands you are discarding, you can also kill some creatures, if not make them weaker. Bonemire, payoff for discarding anything, makes black mana when discarding lands. Cavalier Flame can give other creatures haste, wheels your hand, and deals damage to an opponent equal to the lands in your graveyard when it dies. Centaur Vinecrasher, a creature that can always be returned, gets bigger the more lands that are in the graveyard. Faith of the Devoted, a paid effect, but drains and gains 2 for 2 of any mana. Feast of Sanity, one of the reasons I wanted black, drain 1, gain 1 for every discarded card. Geode Rager, keeps people from attacking us, which helps a lot. Ruinous Rider, it hits people for a lot, easy to recur, and easy to kill. Skull of Grove Dancer, could be replaced probably, just needs some life gain for those who are aggressive towards the slower decks. Titiana, Protector of Argoth, a commander in her own right, makes 5/3s for every discarded land, along with Ayula's Influence. Bag of Holding, good in any deck that discards a lot, return them for 4 mana. Diabolic Tutor, I actually own Demonic Tutor, but this is budget. It tutors. Electric Revelation, I thought some draw would be nice, even with just 1 of it. If you can think of something else more on theme, please say so. I would love to see your edits. Fall of Thran, I wanted an excuse to use this card at least once. Groundskeeper returns a land for 1 and a green, mana sink. Idyllic Tutor, tutors for an enchantment, could get something essential or something dumb like Fall of Thrawn. You choose. Lost Auramancer, surprise, it's a vanishing 3 Idyllic Tutor creature. Magus of the Will, cast spells from your graveyard when you have a good engine set up for 1 turn. Marasu Root Razor, surprisingly useful in a long game that gets you some value occasionally. Nahiri's Lethal Forming, sacrifice lands, draw cards, play lands. Perpetual Timepiece, mill 2 cards or return your graveyard in your library. Soulscar Mage, whenever you deal damage you want it to stay, so this is how that stays. Surly Badger Sword, treasures from discarded lands and possibly some weird removal from discarding creatures, then an instant or sorcery. Eudora Gravegardener turns creatures into force to sacrifice again, which makes for a weird but fun idea in and of itself. Armillary Spear searches for 2 lands and puts them into your hand. Our Wandering searches for up to 3 lands usually and puts them onto the battlefield. Gift of Estates, opponents will always have more lands than us, so we get 3 planes. Colony Gem returns 2 lands and lets us use it for mana. Mirari's Wake, doubling mana is important because we don't want lands on the board if we can discard them. Alien's Intervention, we don't have a lot of flying, so the bottom mode is an option in trying times, and it can also search for lands. Resco's Explorer, same thing as Gift of Estates at this point. Renegade Map, search for a land for cheap. Rites of Spring, discard your hand for some land. Sprouting Vine, search for lands when the combo player does too many things so you can mark them next. Zendikar Resurgent, Morari's Wake, but can actually draw you cards. Aura Fracture, you can sacrifice a land and destroy another person's annoying enchantment. Goblin Raise Runners, for 1 and a red, you can sack a land and put a +1/+1 counter on it. Then when it dies, you can deal that much damage to something. Knight of Reliquary, sacks a plains or a forest for a plains or a forest, and gets bigger because of it. Lotus Field, a land that hates other lands, and lowers the lands on the field, while also letting us still have mana. Zero's Orb, it's free land sacking. Abundance, you can search for a land or other whenever you draw a card. Aiula's Influence, discard a land for bears, because why not? Barbaros Enraged, could be a commander in and of itself, lets you discard a land for 3 damage to an opponent. When it deals combat damage, surveil 3, but you can only take lands. Magma Vein, for every 1 red, sack a land and deal 1 damage to every creature without flying. Seismic Assault, discard a land and deal 2 damage to a creature, or more likely a player. Sylvan Awakening, when you return everything to the battlefield, this is just a fun way to surprise any opponents. Now for the lands. Usually I don't go over these, but I feel they are important because this mana base was a hell of a time to try and create. So the lands are Arctic Meadow, Arctic Treeline, Blood Crypt or Sulphurous Mire, Boros Garrison, Emergent Zone, 8 Forest, Forgotten Cave, Golgari Rot Farm, Ghoul Turf, Highland Forest, Lotus Field, which this is just a reminder, don't put 2 of them in your deck, Mossfire Valley, 6 Mountains, Myriad Landscape, Orsop Basilica, Overgrown Tomb or Necroblossom Snarl, 4 Plains, Rakdos Carnarium, Secluded Steppe, Sungrass Prairie, Forest Swamp, Vesuva or Thespian Stage, and then Woodland Chasm. Now to go over just the combos, because I feel this is kind of important in this deck. So, discarding a land with Bone Miser, and then you can use it with Faith of the Devoted. Discarding a handful of land with Bag of Holding in play, which can bring them back, or Fate's Reward, or Creeping Renaissance, or Splendid Reclamation. Fall Thrawn with anything that returns to the battlefield, such as Fate's Reward, in which case you better win afterward, otherwise you're not going to be thought very highly of. Here he's Lithoforming and anything that brings them back. Cavalier Flame or Ruinous Rider, wreck them with the damage from Seismic Assault after discarding a bunch of lands, return them to your hand afterwards with Creature Recursion to play them again. Sylvan Awakening, after anything like Fate's Reward. So, if you couldn't tell before, this deck is very janky, and I cannot guarantee anything in terms of consistency, but it has been fun to pilot every time I have played it, and nobody expects to die to a bunch of lands being made into lava, then shot at their face. A lava kake? I don't know, it just sounds painful. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed, please leave a like below, or subscribe for more randomly put out deck techs. Goodbye.